Hello and welcome to another episode of the AIGA Design Podcast. My name is Lishan Huang, Co-Executive Director of Learning and Programs here at AIGA, the Professional Association for Design. As you may already know, on this season of the show, we are exploring the theme of design and performance. And now for my co-host.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julia Donatello, Design Competitions and Event Manager at AIGA.
Our guest this episode is Aleksey Fedorov, Director of Global Brand Marketing at Microsoft and a member of the AIGA National Board of Directors. Aleksey, it's so great to have you here on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Julia and Lishan.
So let's get started. Let's learn more about you and your journey. Can you sketch out the story of your career so far? You've worked in tech for over 15 years, almost 14 of them at Microsoft, but you've done a lot at Microsoft, from working with AI, which you talked about at our design conference last year. You've worked with Xbox, with Teams, as well as Pride initiatives within Microsoft. So can you help connect some of the dots of how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. When I think about my career at Microsoft, I think it's been anything but linear. And that's what made it so rewarding. I feel like I'm an old timer now because I started over a decade ago doing audience marketing for Windows in our Russian subsidiary. I'm Russian, that's where I'm from. And I slowly shifted over my career to different aspects of what are the fun things of marketing. When I started, it was my first full-time role. But even before that, I was organizing global youth summits, conferences, educational startups and technology. And these were the spaces where quite early on, I saw that I really have a knack for creative thinking, but also storytelling. At Microsoft over this 15 years, I've had experiences almost in all facets of consumer marketing, from product development and brand strategy to full funnel marketing and retail. As you've mentioned, I worked on Xbox, driving communications there. I worked on our brand strategy for retail, redefining how we show up on Xbox, on Windows, and stores, shaping experiences for Microsoft Teams. And now, most lately, it's all been about AI. And also building our global brand and seeing how actually Microsoft shows up in this world with AI and copilots and agents. When I look back at the career, like, there is a non-linear path, but I think what is really connecting it is my passion for strategic creativity. That's how I call it. It's turning something raw, whether it's ideas, intentions, and creating work that really resonates meaningfully and emotionally and culturally. You've mentioned this, and that's an area what I'm especially proud of, like campaigns that talk about our values, whether it's sustainability, accessibility, fundamental rights, pride, something that touches billions of people around the world.
Lovely. So I'm curious to hear from you in terms of, it seems like you started your career with marketing in a marketing role, and you've gone through all that. You had your bachelor in design, so you were trained as a designer, or you feel like you've became a designer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't think there was a moment when I'm like, oh, I'm a designer, I'm a creative. It was a rather organic journey, part of it through education, part of it through my work experiences. But I think it really started much early on. Like, I was growing up in post-Soviet Russia, and really that was a beautiful time when you saw how design and storytelling and creativity can actually lead to a democratic change. Because at this time, the country opened up and advertising opened up. So you saw these images of Snickers and Coke and Nike, and that was truly fascinating because it was not the reality that you lived in. It was an image of a life that's possible, that's desirable. And that really shaped my sense how I think about actually brand, not as a business tool, but something that can be a force for cultural and societal transformation. And so design has always been driving force. And at the same time, technology was so interesting for me. I grew up with a dad who was a computer scientist. And in the Russian 90s, like, computers, floppy disk, PCs were everything. And the first computer he gave to me didn't even have an operating system. So I had to figure out, like, how to install a bootlegged version of Windows on it. And in English, in a language I didn't speak because I was, like 7 years old. So that experience actually sparked something in me, like a curiosity, like how things actually work. How do you create something with technology? I became immediately obsessed with PC games and the world building that was possible with the PC. And also that visual storytelling, creativity, technology, like these things were shaping me together. So I started making videos, presentations, kind of cutting my own short films, short movies, designing images. And I think kind of I was not thinking of myself at the time as a designer or that I was doing design. It was kind of expressing yourself and creating experiences that didn't yet exist. And so you touched on education, my bachelor was actually in international relations. This desire for me to combine this passion for making change with public good. And I quickly realized that where my sweet spot was actually in this entrepreneurship aspects of it. So I participated in this United Nations models and conferences, G7 youth summits. It was building these organizations that actually bring different people together to solve a societal large problem. And that experience really taught me a lot about collaboration, a lot about ambition, but also how design is not always necessarily about the visual experience. It's often about the organization. It's how we bring things together, how we solve a problem. And somewhere, like as I was getting my bachelor, I realized that creativity was something a part of me, but I haven't really realized it before other people start noticing it. So I went to a business school and was doing classes on marketing and branding, brand strategy, design strategy. And there I really shined and I really loved creating products, really loved creating advertising campaigns. This intersection where there is strategy, storytelling, creativity. And I eventually joined Microsoft with this background. Our team won a business case competition. At this time, there were teams across Russia, and the case was like, how do we get students to sign up to the Microsoft Office subscription at the time? And so we came up with a very original idea with a unique look and feel for this. And managers at the company saw something in me. And so I joined the company doing consumer marketing and really quickly pivoted to brand strategy, creative leadership, communications across the variety of teams. So I think it kind of was a very natural journey. And when I look where I am today, there are these parts of it, right? Like there is public good, there is creativity, there is strategy, there is creating products that create desire and passion. So this education and design and technology has been very intertwined, creating something that doesn't exist that's kind of really fascinates me.
Yeah. I wanted to hone in on what you said earlier about how you believe that brands have the power to drive meaningful change, not just in the market or selling products, but also in terms of society. You've also mentioned before that you're passionate about pushing these boundaries, leveraging the influences that can create impact at scale. So can you help us unpack this quote of yours, but also maybe through an example or something of projects to help us understand?
Absolutely. For me, brand is not just about positioning or aesthetics. It's really about creating meaning. It's how we show up in the world and what do we actually stand for. And I think when it's done right, we can shift culture. We can spark dialogue. We can create a real impact on the planet. The first example that comes to my mind is the work we've actually done on bringing Microsoft's commitments and our societal impact to life through these values-driven campaigns. We call them brand moments. Mm-hmm. So these are moments that are focused on sustainability, accessibility, fundamental rights like LGBTQIA plus equality. But for us, these are not like a marketing moment, not an activation. This is about deeply human storytelling. It's about making real change. It's showing how people are using technology to make something meaningful in their lives and launching this to billions of people around the world. So it's really about tailored, nuanced, authentic narratives and making a difference. And I think this is where I see the brand is at its most powerful. It is really creating that meaning in people's lives. But also when I think about our product, another area I'm very proud of is the work we're doing on AI and on Copilot. Our team has actually spent a lot of time thinking with folks across the company, what a unique perspective can Microsoft bring to the world of AI? And what really emerges is that sense of self-confidence, that AI can help people tame the chaos of their lives, of the modern life, reclaim their time, feel more in control. And I think that message of personal empowerment really strikes a chord. It's really not about the hype. It's not the whistles and all of these things, but it's about humanity. It's about how it makes your life easier. Even going a bit back, when I worked on gaming, we were rethinking what Xbox stood for. It was not just about the console anymore. It's actually reaching players where they are and bringing their favorite games, their experiences, where they play quite often it's on the phone, on their PC, on maybe a handheld device,
Yeah.
on
Or they're
their
like a
own
live
terms.
streamer or some, there's so many places where
Totally,
people
totally, like on
play.
Twitch. But that shift moving from console to gaming everywhere actually requires you to rethink the brand. It's about being more inclusive, more welcoming to different players, how they play, when they play, what are the types of games they like, what are the genres, and reflecting that diversity in your brand and bringing that to the world. So across all of these examples, Xbox, AI, brand moments, I think the through line is this, is brand is a form of liberation. It can be a form of liberation. It is about taking something complex, something that has societal meaning, personal tension, and really showing up in a way that's socially resonant. And I think that's the kind of work that really gets me going and that I'm really excited about.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's awesome to see how you're able to connect your previous roles, but also how you're performing as a leader today at Microsoft. So speaking of performance, that is the theme of this season, which is design and performance, actually. I wanted to hear more from you. How do you see the topic of performance in various definitions of the term? So it could be, you mentioned about the role of your team currently at Microsoft. So how do you perceive the high performing team, and also your role as a leader, as a manager? How do you see performance in your everyday routine?
I really love this question. I compliment on the incredible theme because I think performance is on everybody's minds. Last year, Microsoft did the Work Trend Index, which is a survey we do where we poll companies around the world to see what's popping up for managers based on how they use our product, but also in conversations with them. And one thing that popped up was productivity paranoia. Is that sense that like managers are extremely obsessed and worried whether their teams are productive. In reality, they're far more productive than ever before. And so this paranoia of like, are we productive? Actually, we are much more productive, but maybe we're thinking about productivity in the wrong way. And that's what if I kind of think when I think about efficiency, intensity, performance, I think it's really important to have a right lens. For me, performance actually starts with the end result. So it's a real impact. What are we trying to do? Are we changing perceptions? Are we launching better products? Are we launching them faster? Are people feeling differently about our brand than they felt before? KPIs associated with around it and a sets of metrics. But at the end of the day, it's really about meaning. It's about resonance. It's about the outcomes that actually matter. We can codify as much as we want marketing around certain units of production, around certain deliverables. And in many operations related fields, it's incredibly important. But I think it's not just about hitting the metrics, it's going a little bit behind them. So you asked me about the team. Like a high performing team for me isn't the one that just innovates. It's the one that finds new meaning and constantly reinterprets meaning and creates societal visibility for it or conversations around it, moves the conversation forward. I think that is the key lens for me on the brand side. So lately, in the past few weeks, our team, we've been experimenting with AI and using it in our creative process. Obviously, we've been doing it for the past few years, but one thing we tried really accomplishing is creating almost fully generated AI ad about our AI product, Copilot. So we used AI in every single step of the journey, from figuring out scenarios we want to highlight, to creating storyboards, to visualizing the storyboards with static images, to turning the static images into moving images, to bringing the whole video together. It was quite surreal, very labor intensive, fun, but it was also a great learning for us where we learned where actually AI adds value and where it's not yet fully strong and where human creativity really leads. And I think for me, that is kind of a definition of performance. It's really thinking behind innovation. It's not ticking a box and saying, yes, we use AI, or yes, we've launched 25 campaigns. It's like, what did they actually create? What did they lead to? As a leader on design and brand side, I think for me, it's also important to think about my team. So we create global brand for Microsoft. Like our team is very porous. We work with different disciplines across the company. But at the end of the day, our deliverables is creating trust, relevance, and desire for Microsoft, for Copilot, and for our products. And so as a leader, you actually obviously focused on creative excellence. You're obviously focused on creating something meaningful. But then it's really creating a very psychologically safe environment. It's about care. It's about seeing that we're creating new career paths for folks. It's creating a sense of inclusion, growth, building a space where people actually want to innovate and create something new. And I think for me, that is a big definition of performance. Things that might be less tangible, but actually drive kind of culture eat strategy for breakfast, right? Like it is these things that are highly, highly important. And when I think about our discipline, like design is really changing. Like it's been changing, I think, every single year for the past decades. But we're at this cusp where we have more new tools that challenge us in new ways, open up our perspective in new ways. So that performance aspect will always be a big part of design. But I think for me, it's kind of figuring out the meaning and driving a conversation in a new way.
I love I love the example you shared, and I also loved the theme on productivity paranoia. And I do feel that AI, in many ways, I think in general, folks are feeling that even more now because AI is getting us to be a lot faster and more efficient and all that. So I think it's a trend for sure. But now I'm curious to hear from you based on your example. What did AI could not deliver in this process of creating ads through AI tools?
AI is ultimately not creative. You are
Mm,
creative, right? And your lens, your skills, what you bring to the table is the most important thing. What AI at this stage helps us accomplish is get to ideas faster. If you
mm,
have a blank page of paper, it can get you brainstorm, it can bounce ideas off. So, what in this example it really helped us do is to get to the mood board and storyboard, actually, storyboard phase much faster
Mm.
within a single
faster.
day. We were able to create 15 storyboards that we iterated on, and then we turned them into short, very rough sketches, videos, and we saw what was lost in translation, what worked, what didn't. And even different AI tools generate different results. I can use Sora, I can use Firefly, I can use Microsoft tools, and I will actually get different video outputs, even using the same prompt or the same image. So with AI, your creativity is has a new blend. It's kind of mix of coding because it's iteration, it's trying new things. You kind of see how what leads to different outcomes. It's a lot about opening up yourself because you need to look at this also through the advertising lens. Is it actually a spot that people would enjoy looking at? And I don't think AI can really solve it for it. Like it's not a magic
Mm,
box where you say generate an ad for me and it spits it out. It actually like seven different steps that you follow across a variety of different tools and you are in control. So I think there is this common misconception with AI, kind of, or just fit it to AI and we will give it to you. There, there is this famous phrase that folks say, like if you kind of feed poor data in, you get the poor data out. Uh, but it's not just that you get the things out, like you're ultimately responsible for making this thing work. It's just a tool that you have.
yeah. Well, very, very valid reflection that you brought. And so when we were preparing for this interview, you shared that you have been reflecting on the relationship between design and culture. And I think you already brought some trends that are happening with the rise of AI. And you shared mainly 3 points that we would like to unpack with you together. So the first one is building work around tension, not insight. The second one is creating visual worlds, not graphics, and build for people's identities.
Yeah, I really love those. So let's start with attention. So I think insights is a well-known foundation of the creative work, but what I found and what we found as a team is that tension is actually creating much more real energy and pushes us to think of the things differently. So tension is always emotional. It's human. It's where there is some sort of meaning. It's things that rub us off in a wrong way or things we care about, things that we obsess over, like as humans. And so an example of this, and I already touched on this, was last year at the Cannes Film Festival. That was the first time we were invited to participate in there. And obviously we were going to talk about AI. So
Hmm.
you can imagine the tension in
Yeah.
the room because
Right.
people are anxious about AI. AI might replace us, it might take our jobs. And it was right following up to the strikes in LA, right?
Mm,
So there was all of this pent up tension. And so instead of avoiding this and saying, oh, AI is so good, just jump in, we actually leaned into it. And that was the message in the campaign that we ran, which was AI is not creative, you are. And Phyllis, incredible verbal identity director now, I really led this work. And it resonated because people came to the space. I wasn't there. They took pictures with these words. They talked with me and they're like, this is exactly what I needed to hear. And then we showed different examples how kind of you can upload the scripts, reason over them. You have all of the control and AI helps you get there. But this is the power of the tension, right? You go right in what people are obsessing over, what drives them nuts, and you invite the dialogue, not just reaction. There is many other examples, but I want to move to the graphics. I think the fascinating change that I'm seeing is that design is really about building these immersive, aspirational worlds that people want to step into. Brand is a mirror, and but it's kind of a bigger mirror than just a single image or a set of images or one story. And I guess this is where my gaming experience comes in. So an example of what I'm talking about is the Microsoft's 50th anniversary. So this year in April, Microsoft celebrated that its 50th anniversary, which is kind of bananas if you think about it, right? It's one of the oldest tech brands out there. And so initially, when we were thinking about this campaign and this moment on our team, there was a lot of hesitation because people really wanted to focus on the future and did not want to talk about the past. And it's quite understandable. Like, we're in a tech industry. Tech industry only values innovation. But then when you look at the heritage, it's so powerful because it's grounding. There is pride, there is stability, there is personal stories, there is the context. There is things that many of us have experienced through Microsoft. Like, I talked about my first computer. I still remember installing this version of Windows there. We remember the Clippy, we remember the floppy disks, but also most recently, like the Windows phones and Xbox and Call of Duty and Minecraft. So what we've done, instead of having a single message or a single story, we've created a world that actually the visual world of the 5 decades of Microsoft. And that world was deeply personal because every person's story with Microsoft is different. And so it had different objects, it had different products that we've had, some person's ideas, person's stories. And it was like really, really immersive, very unpolished, quite raw, messy, like our lives are, but a gigantic world. And you can, and we've launched this also on Microsoft Designer, that you can build your own worlds there. So for me, that is this example of not creating a graphic, but building a world. And then the tension there was infusing it with a meaning. So when you look at the 5 decades, so much has happened, right? Like, there is good things, there is bad things, there is fantastic products, there is product failures. But really, if you think of it, like, Microsoft was never this sleek company. It's always for the doers, for the tinkerers, for people who actually make things happen, for those who are unafraid to roll their sleeves and do the work. And that was the tension we leaned in and created this messy, beautiful, engaging, gigantic world. And for me, this is the second point of creating worlds, not graphics. And finally, building the world for people's identities. As I've mentioned, brand is a mirror. It's not about brands being the hero, and we see a lot of it out there, but it's about person on the other side of the screen, most often it's the screen, feeling that they're in control, that they are seeing themselves becoming somebody through this brand. And actually, this is the question I come back to very, very often. Like, who is the person? Who are they becoming? What is the story they're telling themselves about themselves? And whether it's our AI work, where Copilot helps you tame the chaos, so you feel more in control, you feel that sense of self-confidence, you build up your reputation, or whether it's our 50th campaign, where you become the change maker, you see yourself as a change maker over these years, right? It's really about that sense of identity. Another project we worked on most recently was our AI expression. Like, how do we visualize AI outside of Copilot? And that was really positioning you as the dreamer and the doer. And that is the tool that gets you to your dreams and things faster. So really, it's not us telling stories. It's people telling their own story to themselves and to the world. So this is when I think about design and culture. These are the 3 things. It's not really about aesthetics or just messaging. It's really about that meaning. And you create that meaning by leaning into tension, by building a world that's very resonating and really focuses on the person's identity that's engaging with it.
Yeah, I'd like to build on that point about building for people's identities. We're recording this interview in June of 2025, which is Pride Month. And you were mentioning before we started recording that your background, your video background, for folks who are only listening to the podcast, you're going to have to watch this on YouTube so you can see Aleksey's cool video background, but part of your Pride campaign. So to set up the question, you are a worldwide membership chair for Gleam, which is Microsoft's employee resource group for the LGBTQIA plus community. And so, yeah, what are the primary goals for Gleam? How do you foster an inclusive environment in such a large global corporation like this? And yeah, tell us more about the campaign as well, since we can see it on your screen.
Thank you. Yes, I'll start, I'll dial it a little bit back. So obviously I'm queer, and I think kind of we talk a little bit about view and design, but one of the things we haven't touched on yet is like our own personalities, our own stories, they obviously impact how we see the world. So when I was growing up in Russia, queerness, it's kind of was invisible at best, but it was dangerous at worst. And I think that experience in many ways shaped how I think about the power of design, the power of storytelling, of visibility to actually drive change. And moving here, what I really saw is that images, narratives, symbols, they can either reinforce oppression or they can unlock something. They can lead to a better future. That's why I'm so passionate about brand as a liberation, as a tool for making change. And that's why I actually volunteered to be on the Gleam, our LGBTQIA plus global employees and allies at Microsoft resource group, to be a leader there. So Gleam is a volunteer-based community. It's people raise their hands, they get voted by the community to work on different aspects, primarily focused on the well-being, on the support of the creating culture, visibility, belonging. But it's also working with teams across Microsoft, with HR, with legal teams to ensure that the policies are in place, that we have this environment where everybody can bring their best self to work. When I think of Pride, obviously, it's a really powerful moment. It's a powerful moment for me personally, but it's also a powerful moment for us as a company. And when I started being a part of the Gleam board, we had a lot of conversations with the community. And what we really saw was we had an opportunity to reflect on Satya's call for the company, and Satya is our CEO, to use Microsoft as a platform for good. And what we've been able to accomplish over the past 8 years of me leading the Pride campaign is really reposition what it is for us and make it about the values, making it about the real change, creating something that is not performative. It's not just waving a flag without meaning. This is actually something we actively work against. It is really rooting in that societal tension and doing something about it. So when you look at my background, it's what you will see if you're watching video, but if you're listening to the podcast, it's 74 different LGBTQIA plus community flags that represent gender identities, sexual orientations, and they're blended together in this very, I call it effervescent way that gives a sense of unity. And why unity is so important? Well, because we're living in a very divisive time. And it's really easy to shut down or retreat into our own corners, into our own small identities. But really the only way through, the only way to create a more equal society is by leaning on each other, is actually through each other. It's mutual aid, it is care, it is showing up for people who are different from us, showing up for communities that we might not be a part of. And so this year, the theme for Pride for us is pride for each other, quite literally.
Yeah.
And I think it's highly important in this time because it's not a message. It's actually really about the movement. And we make sure to make it a movement. So it's all of the design is open source. People can use and download these files and assets in Figma and GitHub, or if they just want to manipulate them in the Microsoft Designer. They can create their postcards, their flags. We waive all of the copyright there. We launch it across different products, and we accompany it with storytelling to land kind of what Pride for Each Other actually means for our employees. And obviously, we talk about the Microsoft's commitments. And I think for me, this is what inclusion looks like in action. I've also been lucky to work on campaigns that go beyond pride, like working on accessibility or sustainability or holiday campaign. Like we always have this lens of inclusion that's rooted in values, that is kind of doing it at scale. I remember a few years back, we were doing this beautiful holiday campaign, which was all about AI, creating image generation with AI. But that was a story of, I think, 8 different people celebrating 8 different holidays. And they shared their unique personal stories about their holidays with an artist. And this artist used Microsoft Designer to create this unique personal images. And they saw for the first time their own kind of themselves in the holidays, and from Kwanzaa to Christmas to the Feast of the Seven Fishes. Like, and this was extremely inclusive way to look at the world and what people celebrate. Diwali, like all, it was really beautiful. And I think that is the power and the magic that we have. I know I started with pride, but it's really kind of goes through that sense of inclusion that lands is highly important. Like it's not a checkbox. It's you actually need to think things differently, and they help people feel seen. They help people feel safe. We do our best work. And I think when brands reflect the richness of the world around them, actually the world becomes more meaningful, more human, and more powerful in many ways.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And thank you for sharing what you've been doing at Microsoft and the volunteer component of that through Gleam. I wanted to transition to another organization you're volunteering for, which is AIGA.
Exactly.
Let's talk about ourselves for a little bit. But you are on our national board of directors. You're on this working group that consists of board members like yourself, chapter leaders, staff members. I've been part of this that's been working on some strategic planning, brand refresh for AIG itself right now. And I know it's like not quite launched yet. It's still very much in progress, but I'd like to take this opportunity to see if, is there anything you wanted to preview or tease for folks who are listening to this right now before we do a full rollout of things?
Oh, absolutely. What an incredible time to be in organization that is supported by so many volunteers, right? We just talked about mutual aid, about mutual support. And when I think about the moment in time we're in, like it is a moment for AIGA. It is a moment for these professional associations that bring people together to create meaning in their professions, but also create something different in the world. When I think of AIGA, AIGA has a rich legacy. It's been
Hmm.
a foundational force in shaping design profession in the US, from pioneering graphic design to elevating the role of designers in culture and business. It really has brought designers to the table and in many ways changed the conversation around design. And that is incredible accomplishment. Incredible accomplishment. When we think even about competitions like 50 books, 50 covers, it's some of the most prestigious in the industry, right? And it's very
Hmm.
coveted.
Yeah, and over 100 years old, which is like mind-boggling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you think of an organization and the time of AI and the time of this change with 100 years of heritage, of knowing and being with these trends, I think you cannot be in a better place. But with that legacy comes an opportunity and a responsibility actually to evolve. And so what we're working on now is honoring this incredible history while reimagining what the AIGA can be for this new generation of design and designers. So we are asking ourselves, how do we make AIGA feel more open, more relevant, more reflective of the full spectrum of design today? How do we move from being a place of prestige to a platform for participation and engagement? Still prestigious. And without giving
Right.
too much away, what I'll say is that we are shifting our thinking of AIGA from a static institution to something like a living system. It's rethinking our behaviors, rethinking experiences, and the value we ultimately bring to designers as a professional associations. I mean, in the world of today, there is a need for an organization that's seen it all and that can help designers be in control of the change we're seeing around us. So we're exploring how to make our brand and our offering more porous, inclusive, and really expressive of design. And what I really love is that we're making it in a very collaborative way. That's what I started with. Like we're bringing board members, we're bringing chapter leaders, staff, Lishan, you and Karen, and then like many folks to actually co-create something that feels grounded and aspirational. When we started this, I talked a lot about democratic design, and I think it is highly important today. That it's not just what we deliver, but how we deliver. And yes, it might take a little bit more time. Yes, we might need to reconcile different points of view, but and we're kind of in the early days, but I'm very excited about where we're going because it's not just a refresh, it's a redefinition.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how you're framing this up, right? And it's like sometimes with being a very old organization and having this prestige, it can become like, we don't want to become just a museum piece or something that's like, you can't touch. It's like, how do we evolve with the time, be living, breathing, and still celebrate the fact that we have 100-plus-year-old book competition, but also in a time of AI and ebooks and other media,
That's
right,
right.
that are relevant, and how do we stay relevant while still celebrating the printed book, which we love, I still
We
love,
love.
and it's worth celebrating, but also thinking about bringing the new into that as well.
Absolutely. And I think there is nothing wrong with museums. Like museums are an incredible space for challenging your perception, for
Mm.
learning new things. But when we talk with our members, they want more. And so that we are together defining this more and new.
Yeah. Lovely. Yes. I also, I mean, we heard a lot about your perceptions of different ways of approaching performance. And I'm also curious now to hear from you what has been the best failure, or we can also say unexpected outcome that somehow taught you about performance.
I really love this question. And there's been so many failures. And over the time, I've learned to love them, cherish them, and embrace them. So I think one of the biggest lessons for me comes from the gap between ambition and reality. So ambition and reality. And so early in my career, I often found myself in situations where I misjudged the environment, where
Mm,
I'm bringing an idea into space that maybe is not quite ready for it, or
mm,
I overestimate the appetite for change, or
mm.
I'm misunderstanding what the organization or the leaders are really looking for. And yes, you can feel sad and upset and kind of get that sense of victimhood, but at the end of the day, that misalignment is on me. And
Mm,
it really taught me that design is problem solving,
Mhm.
but only if you're solving the right problem.
mhm,
Mm.
Because the failure isn't in the execution most often, it's in the framing. It's
Mm.
how we actually thought about the project. Why did we do this thing? And that's where often the failures came. And what I've learned through this is to ask better questions, to listen more deeply. And oh my goodness, this is very hard. I'm very fast. I drink gallons of coffee. So I jumped right into problem solving. Like this is not kind of listening deeply is really, really hard. But understanding the context before jumping into solution mode is something I keep continuously working on. And on the flip side, like the most powerful, because you said what's the learning but unexpected outcome, I think there's a separate things. Like the most positive unexpected outcome was when I joined the brand team about 3 years ago. And we intended to shift how we built the Microsoft brand, moving it from something very static to something that's very dynamic, treating it more
mm,
like fashion, like entertainment, something that's continuously alive, evolving. And these brand moments, brand campaigns, brand activations became this living beat of the brand that's constantly creating something in the face in the culture. But what we've really discovered along the way is perhaps that model of static brand signatures and
Mm.
repeatable gestures doesn't actually work for us anymore. Like
mm.
being associated with a color or with only one type or with only one way we're treating illustration ended up being quite limiting for us.
Yeah.
And that was a really enlightened outcome. And so instead, what we're doing, we're building a very porous, very living brand, one that is always in the dialogue with the people, with the culture, constantly evolving, but is grounded in trust, in reality. Like Microsoft at the end of the day stands for reality. It's
Mhm.
for support. And that was a shift for us. And that's been very transformative because it changed how we think about performance, the brand performance, not as a consistency of form, but as a consistency in meaning. That the
Mhm.
Mhm.
meaning we generate is consistent. And I think that's about the support. It's about empowerment. It's standing up for people. It's helping them do something. It's helping them feel that they can rely on Microsoft, they can trust these experiences. So it was a really beautiful discovery. And I've really learned through this that performance, if you will, isn't really about perfection. A degree of it is really about adaptation. It's about learning. It's about staying open to what the work is teaching you. And I really love this. Like the work is teaching you so much. Even working on this Pride campaign, we went, I think, through 7 rounds of nailing our idea. We had this sense of affectionate community for each other, pride for each other. Then how does it look? How do we bring it together? Like the work really teaches you and changes you. And that's what I'm always so excited to experience.
This is great. And I love to hear what you said. I mean, earlier you said that, and we all know that tech industry focus and values a lot innovation, but being on the branding team, looking at what's happening in other industries to build the brand that you want for Microsoft is very inspiring. So looking, as you mentioned, entertainment or also fashion industry to see what aspects of other brands exist in the market we can learn from to build or rebuild our own brand. That's a great point.
Absolutely. Like I think for me, I'm looking outside technology much more often
Yeah.
than inside technology, because in the end, it's like we all have limited attention span. We interact with these brands as we're doing something else in our lives. So how do we make that experience easier, whether we are taming the chaos or whether we are helping you unlock your creativity? Like how do we become something that you actually want to be part of, and that we're creating a world for you that you see yourself in, and it also helping you do things differently and better.
You mentioned that you're a big coffee lover, and we wanted to hear more if you have any other type of habit or ritual that helps you succeed. I mean, is there a specific habit?
For me, it's really about leaning into discomfort, stepping
Mm.
into discomfort. So I think I found that the moments which shaped me are the ones where I didn't feel confident, where I didn't feel in control, where I'm feeling uncertain, exposed, or even scared. I feel these are the biggest teachers. So, like when I first moved to Seattle, I still wasn't openly queer. So, I attended my first Pride March, which felt liberating but also overwhelming. Like it brought joy and shame and vulnerability. And the next best thing I decided to do is to run for the Gleam Board. And so, okay, now
Mm.
I'm going to really put myself out there and learn new things. Or even like on our projects, it's like leaning into tough feedback or figuring out new unfamiliar references. I've mentioned that my career wasn't linear, and I think a big part of it is I'm trying to put myself in roles that challenge me. And the moment when I stop feeling challenged, I know it's time to evolve and do something different again. For me, this ritual is to continuously put myself in discomfort.
Yeah, and you had mentioned previously that you'd like to look outside of tech for
Yes.
inspiration. So, for our lightning round, as we start to wrap up our time together, can you tell us about more about where you go for inspiration to stay up to date with things? And then if you have any specific recommendations, it could be a book, a show, a movie, any piece of media that you'd like to recommend to our listeners, our viewers. Will post links in the show notes for this. But yeah, inspiration and recommendations.
I draw a lot of inspiration from art, especially the 20th century art, the history of art, the 21st century. Having a husband who is an artist really helps. And the reason it's very inspiring for me is that I feel in advertising and branding, we're doing many things that have already been explored in art. And they have been explored often in far more radical and provocative ways. So for me, it's an endless and like source of ideas, potential, visual language. And I think one of the seminal works on it is Art Since 1900. Like it's quite dense, but it's a really brilliant book that helps you go through the major phases of the 20th century art. And I think it's phenomenal. I also stay very plugged into contemporary culture. So English for me is a second language. And so TikTok is like this example of a daily inspiration for me of how people actually talk. And it really fascinates me, like how language and how we frame things, how we tell stories, how we create meaning, like in an incredibly raw and inventive way. So highly, for me, like it's an endless source of fun and inspiration as well. But I do rotate through different mediums. Sometimes it's games, it's world building, it's character storytelling, whether it's on Xbox, on PC or PlayStation, they really help you see things in a different way. And also see how we are continuously building worlds differently because games change so much. If you look like we are in this time when we're remastering many of the titles that have existed for 10 years or a little bit older, and you see how even notions of interaction
Hmm.
and how we think about the elements of gameplay change dramatically. So this is very interesting for me. On the business side, I really enjoy Benedict Evans' newsletter about tech. He brings a like a really sharp, business-focused view on technology and trends. And brand is problem solving, so it really helps me see what's happening in our industry in a more strategic way. For the creative inspiration, like I really go to AIGA, to Fast Company, Creative Review, but I think I also go through this rotation of obsessing about something. So most sci-fi, and I've been reading tons of sci-fi books, TV shows, and yes, it is kind of a sense of escapism, but I think it's about imagining alternative realities. We're at this
Mm.
time with AI where we are actually imagining a different world. So this helps me think about kind of what are the actions we take and how do they impact systems at large. If I think about movies in tech, we go through these phases where there is a movie that defines what's happening. And I think right
Yeah.
now it's the movie Her.
Yeah.
We're seeing like a lot of
Yeah.
brands just creating these AI companions. So I would recommend everybody rewatching it and kind of framing their own opinion on it.
Wonderful. Thank you for all of those recommendations. Again, we'll post links to those references below. But Julia, do you want to take us out with the final question?
I mean, you have already mentioned, Alexei, about some reference of inspiration for you. So, is there any other recommendation that you want to share with our listeners? That could be, a show.
Shows wise, I think I've recently been really inspired by Andor
Yeah, I'm
on.
so obsessed with that show. I
Oh my goodness,
rewatched
I
the
think
first season after the second season aired, and it's like, whoa.
that's a great idea. I'll do this. I think it's a Mon Mothma Summer, but she's like one of the characters in the show. What I really was fascinated is by taking a fabled brand into a
Mm,
completely new space of dystopian political thriller, if you will, how the resistance kind of was created. It's not just an incredible show, it's not just an incredible storytelling, most likely the best thing we've seen in that universe in a long while. But it also is a new take for a brand, and that was deeply inspiring for me. And I think I'd recommend for people who are interested in the themes like this to really take a look.
And for folks who want to follow you or learn more about your work, is there anywhere you want to send people as your call to action?
I'll be very boring. I'll say LinkedIn.
Okay.
Look me up on LinkedIn, follow me there. I always post the latest work that our team is working on and just some of the thoughts that come to my mind.
All right. Well, Aleksey Fedorov, thank you so much for joining us on the AIG Design Podcast. Thank you for listening or watching us here. Please rate and subscribe us and do all of those things that helps the algorithm and helps your friends and colleagues learn about us. All right, until next time. Bye.